Welcome back to Smith History, separating the Smith from the myth. The only podcast brave enough, bold enough, and possibly foolish enough to document the legendary misadventures of the Smith family. This is the long-promised sequel to our earlier episode on Smith Miscues, miscommunications, and mistakes. And let me tell you, the Smith archives are deep, Smithsonian level deep. Now I've taken it upon myself to be the family historian, not because anyone asked me to, but because I knew nobody else in the family would ever volunteer to reveal these stories to the world. I have what you might call an elephant's memory. As Groucho Marx once said, I never forget a face, but in your case, I'll make an exception. Well, I never forget a funny Smith moment. And trust me, we've supplied enough material to keep this podcast going until the resurrection. Now, I won't retell the classics you already know. The bowling ball I dropped on Jeff's big toe. The washing machine Dad dropped on Mom's big toe. Jeff throwing an aluminum bat straight up in the air and proving scientifically that his head was harder than the bat. Those stories are already part of the Smith legend. They've been notarized, laminated, and filed under What Were We Thinking? Today we go deeper. Picture this, Phoenix, 1974. Two hungry teenage boys, me and Jeff, armed with several cartons of empty pop bottles. Back then, bottle deposits were basically our version of Bitcoin. Cash them in, and you could buy enough candy to fuel a small army. We set out on foot, wandering farther and farther from our home, until somehow we ended up near downtown Phoenix. And that's when the desert decided to remind us who's boss. A sandstorm hit. Not a gentle breeze. Not a dusty day. A full-blown, blinding biblical sandstorm. I remember I couldn't see 2 feet in front of me. I yelled for Jeff, and I heard his voice coming from the middle of a busy street. Now, if Mom had found out Jeff got run over on my watch, she would have sworn that I planned it. So I stumbled through the sand like a blind camel until I found him. And we survived the storm, only to cross a parking lot where a man yelled at us, and we believe he fired a shot in the air to get us off his property. All that for a few dollars and a bag of candy. Was it worth it? Absolutely. Fast forward to Mom and Dad visiting Rick in Minnesota. They were in their 60s by then. A heavy snowstorm was rolling in, so naturally they decided it was the perfect time to take a road trip. When they left to go back to Ohio, they drove up a steep hill and slid all the way back down. And somehow, by the grace of God and maybe a few angels on overtime, no one hit them. The Smith family motto, if it looks dangerous, we'll try it once. From sandstorms to snowstorms, now the bike chronicles. Jeff, our resident genius, had another moment of brilliance in 1974. Mom had bought us a brand new bike again, but this time only one bike. It was shared among all the brothers, but it was a recipe for disaster. Jeff walked to school every day that year, every single day. But on the last day of school, he decided to ride the new bike. No lock, no plan, no chance. When he came out after school, the bike was gone, vanished, poof. We kept Jeff away from bikes for a long while after that. But the bike saga doesn't end there. I remembered way back in 1968 I had a paper route, and I saved enough money to buy a beautiful, used 5-speed bike. I loved that bike, and I warned all my brothers not to touch it. I even told Mom, because I was going to summer camp for a week. However, when I came back, that bike looked like it had competed in a demolition derby. The chain was off. The handlebars were bent. It was unrideable. 1 week gone, the bike was destroyed. All 3 brothers claimed innocence with Oscar-worthy performances. And my memory goes back even further. I remember 1966, Upper Sandusky, Ohio. I was 8 years old. I remember being outside of our house, and I looked down the street and saw a chubby little 4-year-old waddling toward me with a giant paper bag and a chocolate bar bigger than his face. It was my brother Randy, half of the Twin Terrors. Where Rick was, I don't know. He wasn't involved this time. Randy had taken a $10 bill from Mom's purse, walked down the street, crossed an even busier street, and bought a candy bar at the Busy Bee store, alone, at age 4. All these years later, I wonder what that clerk thought. I opened up the paper bag. Inside was the change, just tossed in like he was storing a pirate treasure. The clerk must have thought, well, this kid's either a genius or he's a future problem. It's known in my memory as the Great Candy Heist of 1966. And now we go to the Kyle files. Ah yes, Kyle, the baby brother. There was a lake incident in 1974. It was a busy year for Smith, Miscues, and miscommunication. We older brothers, we set off exploring at a campground we were staying in. Unbeknownst to us, 3-year-old Kyle followed several yards behind. Dad was probably eating a hamburger. Mom, well, I have no memory of what she was doing. Maybe they had given up parenting for the afternoon. I don't know. But I remember another camper brought Kyle back. They found him right next to a very large lake that 4 of us had been playing around. We had no idea he'd been following us. Mom gave me a verbal beating worthy of a courtroom drama. I was just trying to be a kid on summer vacation. But that was another tragedy averted. And then there was the graduation moment with Kyle. Years later, Kyle had redeemed himself, but with comedy gold. We were at the Marion Palace Theater in front of a packed house. Kyle was there for his first degree. I remember he shook the dean's hand and walked across the stage. Then the dean waved him back. Kyle had forgotten his diploma. The crowd loved it, laughing as he walked all the way back across the stage to get his diploma. It was a classic Smith moment. Harmless, hilarious, and unforgettable. And then there's Rick, the other part of the Twin Terrors. I remember he helped me move once. Rick drove the U-Haul, and everything was fine until we reached our new apartment, which sat on a small hill. Rick wanted to get the truck as close to the door as possible. Most people would park safely, not Rick. He drove the truck sideways along the hill at what looked like a 45-degree angle. As I remember, 2 tires lifted off the ground. I nearly passed out. Somehow, the truck did not tip. Rick just grinned and said, "I had it all the way." I'm still not convinced. So what did we learn today? Well, in the Smith family, sandstorms can't stop us. Snowstorms can't slow us down. Bikes fear us. Chocolate attracts us. And U-Hauls should avoid us entirely. We survived bad decisions, malaprops, miscommunications, and more close calls than a cat with 9 lives and bad balance. But through it all, God was with us. And because of that, we're here today with stories so unbelievable, I'm not sure the grandchildren will believe a single one. But that's why we have Smith history, separating the Smith from the myth. Because if we don't tell these stories, who will? Until next time, this is BR, your loyal Smith historian, signing off. Stay safe, stay sane, and remember, in every family there's truth, and then there's Smith truth. We don't exaggerate, we just remember creatively. But if it sounds impossible, it's probably happened to us.